which is passed by supraorbital margin, lateral margin of the orbit, superior margin of zygomatic arch, till porus acousticus externus. Now once again, border between facial and brain box regions, it is imaginary plane which is passed by supraorbital margin, lateral margin of the orbit, superior margin of zygomatic arch, till porus acousticus externus. Now 1 minute attention. This is our porus acousticus externus. Once again, I will show you in my face. Look at this. Supraorbital margin, lateral margin of the orbit, superior margin of zygomatic arch, till porus acousticus externus. Part of the head, which will be up and behind of this line, we will call brain box. Part of the head, which will be below and in front of this line, we will call facial skull. Idea is understandable. That's why this is division number 1. Remember, inside of the brain box, now I open it to show for you. Inferior surface we call base of the skull. Base of the skull. It is the chair for the brain. Brain is located. Upper part we call fornix. Fornix of the skull. That's why all these brain box or cranial part, we divide it into upper part, which we call fornix, and lower part, which we call base. Let's say once again, write please. We need to find 2 points. Point number 1, look everybody here. It is middle point between 2 myorbits. We call it nasio. Let's say once again, look here please. To divide it fornix from the base, I need to find 2 points. Point number 1 we call nasio. It is midpoint between 2 orbits. Point number 2, my friends, I find in posterior part, in occipital bone. Everybody please, palpate it here. Protuberantia occipitalis externa. External protuberance. It is great palpatable. This structure, just in midpoint.
Yes.
The midpoint of this protuberance we call inion. Let's say this is nasio. That is inion. Now look everybody here. Little bit. Move your telephones. If by horizontal plane I will connect it nasion with the inion, up to this plane I will have fornix, below this plane I will have the base. Let's say, my friends, once again, remember please, first of all the skull, we divide it into facial part and brain box, which we call neurocranium. Now neurocranium or brain box, we divide it again into 2 portions, the fornix and the base. Let's continue. Now look everybody here. It's given which parts we describe in our fornix, my friend, in our neurocranium. We have unpaired bones and we have paired bones. Right, please. Like and please. This is our frontal bone. This is our occipital bone. This is our sphenoid bone. And that is our ethmoid bone. Let's say once again, you can see that all bones is single. I can show it in these columns. This is frontal bone. This is occipital bone. This is sphenoid bone. Give me your pen. And that is ethmoid bone. Let's say once again, my friends, we have 4 unpaired bones in the neurocranium. Frontal one, occipital one, sphenoid one, ethmoid one. Now write please, the bones. Parietal bones, right one and the left one. Parietal bones. This is our parietal bones. Look here please. This is parietal bones. This is left one, that is right one. And you can see the bone suture which is connected these 2 bones to each other. Right one and left one. Parietal bones, remember this. Second bone, my friends, it is our temporal bones. This is our temporal bones. Look here, please. This is our temporal bones. Right and left. This is temporal bones. Let's say 2 parietal bones, 2 temporal bones. Also, guys, we have three small bones inside of the ear. It is the malleus, incus, and stapes. They are located inside of the middle ear. All these bones we will study together. That's a malleus, incus, and the step. It is the double bones we have and in right middle ear and in left middle ear. With one side, they connected with tympanic membrane. With another side, they connected with deep ear, with oval aperture of the deep ear. Let's say, my friends, this is all bones which we have in neurocranium. Once again, group number 1. This is the 4 bones which is on pair. And group number 2, it is 3 group of the bones which is paired. Parietal, temporal, and the bones inside of the ear. Now look on the next slide, please. Now we come to the facial. Now we come to the facial part, which we call also viscera cranium. That's a brain box we call neurocranium. Facial part we call viscera cranium. Which bones we have here? Only 2 unpaired bones, my friends. It is our mandible and this is our vomer. Look here, please. This is our mandible. This is our mandibular bone. Vomer is not visible here. I will show it for you in this picture, my friends. Look here, please. This bony septa, which is divided right and left nasal cavities to each other, this is our vomer. You understand it? Mm-hmm. Which is divided nasal cavity into right and left halves. Let's say once again, from single bones we have the mandible and we have the vomer. From double bone larger, usually you think that it is single bone, but it's not so. Between right and left we have the suture which is connected to each other. Let's say remember, our mandible, it is single bone. Our maxilla, it is double bone. But they by bone suture, right and left, connected to each other. Second bone, it is our zygomatic bone. Look here, please. It's broken here. But in that side, it's normal. This is right. You can palpate it. It's great palpatable. Right and left zygomatic bones. That's it is also double bone. Third one, it is our nasal bone. You can see right and left nasal bones. It's great visible here. Don't palpate the inferior part. Inferiorly, you have the cartilage here. It is not the bony part. It is the cartilage. Superiorly, we have the bone part. Next one, it is lacrimal bone. Lacrimal bone forms the upper medial wall of our orbits. Here, lacrimal bone, right and left lacrimal. It is just behind of the nasal bones. Let's say, my friend, it forms the medial upper wall of our orbits. Next one, it is the palatine bone. My friends, this is the palatine bone. Look here, please. It forms the bone wall, upper wall of the oral cavity. If you will attach by your tongue the upper wall, it will be first of all soft palatine, and deep to the soft palatine will be the bone palatine. It is also double, right and left bone palatine. And finally, last one, it is inferior concha. Inferior concha is not visible here. I will show it in this picture. Inferior concha. It's also not presented here, my friends. You remember maybe, or you don't know, in our nasal cavity we have 3 conchas: superior, middle, and inferior. Superior and middle concha forms by ethmoid bone, this bone. Inferior concha, it is the separated bone, which is doesn't connected with ethmoid bone. All these bones we will study, and all the pictures I will show. Just now remember, please, once again, our visceral cranium, like a neurocranium, divided into single and into double. We describe 2 single bones and we describe 6 double bones. All these bones we will study together. Let's continue. Several landmarks I want to show for you. Yeah, first of all, the structure of the bone. It's not so hard, my friends. It is like any another spongy bones. You remember, for spongy bones, we described 3 layers, yeah? External compact layer, internal compact layer, and between them we have diploidic layer, spongy layer.
Yes.
Inside of diploidic layer, my friends, we describe the veins, vessels. That's why if will be the fracture of the skull bones, we will see bleedings. Because diploidic layer, it is content red bone marrow, it content the vessels, veins, that's why it gives the profuse bleeding. Let's say once again, remember please, our skull bones, all the skull bones, doesn't matter which one we will take. They have 3 layers. Look at this. It will be like this: external compact layer, internal compact layer, and between them we will have spongy layer, which is connected these 2 compact layers to each other, which we call diploidic layer. Like you know, before we say about it, it is content red bone marrow and it contains the veins, diploidic veins. And what is important, my friends, look everybody here, please. Usually our practices show that external compact layer, layer number 1, it is twice stronger than internal compact layer. Let's say usually if we have the fractures of the skull bones, in 50-55% of cases, only internal compact layer is damaged. You understand? So awful situation is it. From superficially, how much you want, you can palpate it. You will not see any problem because external compact layer doesn't damage it. Only X-ray picture can show for you the big problem inside of the cranial cavity. As I remember forever, during all your life, if your patient has serious problem of the head trauma, you must to make X-ray. It is strong recommendation for everybody. But remember please this structure, that's external, internal. By the way, external and internal compact layer doesn't contain vessels. That's why bleeding is gives only between them diploidic layer, not the compact layers. Let's continue, my friends. On the next slide, I want to show for you some special cavities inside of the bones, which we call sinuses. This is air cavities, and usually this air cavities has connection with the nasal cavity. Function of them, my friends, it is the restoration of the air, and it is the providing of some voice. They decrease the voice, they make the vibration inside of the bones. There are several sinuses. The biggest sinus, it is the frontal sinuses. They are located inside of the frontal bone. Second big sinus, it is the maxillary sinus. It's located in the maxillary end. Several small sinuses we have in sphenoid and in ethmoid bones. But the biggest, remember, it is our frontal sinuses, big cavities inside of the frontal bone, and our maxillary sinuses, rather big cavities inside. Unfortunately, guys, these spaces can have inflammation. Inflammation of the sinus we call sinusitis. Remember, please, usually it shows inflammation. And you know what is problem? Just only by antibiotics, it will be very hardly treatable problem. Can you say me why? My friends, the idea is simple, because inside of the sinus we don't have enough soft tissue to provide by vessels the antibiotics to this place. This is the bone. This bone, which is covered from inside by mucous membrane, they say we don't have so much vessels to provide enough medicine to this place for treatment. That say, unfortunately, if there are inflammation, usually we make punctures. We make punctures to remove this pus, and if it is necessary inside, it is washed by antibiotics, by antiseptics, clean and treat in the place, not by the giving just the medicine. Is it understandable? That's I remember, please, several bones of the skull, which I show. Usually it is 4 bones. I say frontal bone, maxilla, ethmoid bone, and sphenoid bone. They have the small air cavities, which we call sinuses. Remember it, please. Let's continue, my friends. Now, look, please, here. The norms which I give in the slide is not so, yeah.
I really wonder why the shape of
Student, generally in science, there are 2 types of questions. How and why. It's very easy to answer in the question how. For example, how it forms, which kind of structure it has. But it's very hard to say why it has this kind of a form. It's very interesting. You start exactly from second type, the philosophical question. Why it has this kind of bone? The answer is not hard, dear, because inside of the head we have the cranial cavity and it contains the brain. Now open your eyes and look in the upper pictures, which show for you the brains, different section of the brains. If you will see attentively in this brain, you will see that it has not the angular form, but it has the oval shape, round shape form, and to not attach to the bony angles, to not attach to some processes which will be strongly if our head will be touch wood, of course. Even it's hard for me to imagine the person with triangular. But why no? You have great imagination, maybe yes. But in any case, my friends, the structures inside of the cranial cavity, it's not the angular. These structures has smooth surface, oval surface, round shaped surface. That's it.
Maybe it's better for protection.
For protection of what? No, I don't think that triangular structures is not so protected. Not theirs. For protection, you can easily have triangular head. But for beauty, I think it will be not so good. Yeah. For content of our head, generally, guys, evolutionally, if you will look to any animals, you hardly will find so angular forms. It's not the car. Evolution doesn't make the angular structures. Evolution usually makes the smooth structures superficially. Smooth, oval, round shape. Why? It is necessary for hemodynamical any movements to have, I don't know, smooth surface which will be not accumulated any liquids, anything else. It will be smooth without big depressions. So in philosophical, great question, try to find answer. If you will see our creator ask him also. Happy to listen his answer, yeah? Yeah. But question is interesting. Now, all these forms which I give, my friends, there are 1 minute. 1 minute, look everybody here. By the way, your question is deeper. I can say that different nations can be different to each other by form of the head. Generally, my friends, there are 3 main forms of our head. First one we call dolichocephaly. Second we call brachiocephaly. And last we call normocephaly. What it means, dolicho? It means the length sizes is bigger than the width sizes. Brachiocephalic, vice versa, or round-headed person. We say that the width sizes, by the way, and Armenians and Kurdish persons, we are more brachiocephalic persons, not dolich. For example, Turkish persons, it is dolichocephalic persons. Mainly they have the upper sizes bigger. This is anthropology, which is study the sizes of our body. That's why between us there are anthropological differences. By the way, Armenian and Kurdish nations and Arabic nations has a lot of same structural peculiarities because they live approximately in the same area, and anatomically and structurally they included even in one race form of the peoples. Let's say you must know that we are relatives generally, yeah? Generally we are relatives. Now, my friends, mainly about norm-shaped forms, you will study a little bit. I want to say you about sutures which we have between the cranial bone. Look here, please. I will show for you the biggest sutures. Suture number 1, we call coronar suture. Coronar suture divided our, or connected, how you want it. You can say, really will be better to say connected, our frontal bone with parietal bones. Coronar suture located in frontal plane. This is frontal plane, that is sagittal plane, this is horizontal plane. All these planes you must know. Second suture, the biggest one, which is located between right and left parietal bones, we call sagittal suture. Sulcus sagittalis. It is connected right and left sagittal suture to each other, and it is located strongly in sagittal plane. Next big suture we call the lambdoid suture. Lambdoid suture connected our parietal and occipital bones to each other, and it has little bit triangular shape like you like, yeah, triangular shape form, and it is located between our parietal and occipital bone. This is, and lastly, my friends, it is the temporal suture which is connected our parietal and temporal bones to each other. That's I remember, please. Temporal one, coronar one, sagittal one, and lambdoid one. This is the biggest bone sutures which we have between our cranial bones. My time is very short, my friends, short to come to conclusion. Let's say now you will read all these 2-3 slides I don't show for you, mainly the apertures and something else. Now, I will copy it for you we'll start to study with you neurocranial or brain box. And exactly, guys, I give you today the bones of the fornix, not the base, but the fornix. Remember, please, in the fornix of neurocranial, we have just the bones which I give you today to study. It is single frontal bone, single occipital bone, double parietal bones, and double temporal bones. That's together you can see that there are approximately exactly 4 bones. From these 4 bones, I give you to study only 3 today. It is frontal bone, it is occipital bone, and this is the parietal. Temporal bones will be next your homework. Now, my friends, because in which time, how many minutes we have before to finish?
5 minutes.
5 minutes approximately. Yeah. Now look here, please. Before start to tell you guys, you have great problem. You know, really, your potential is great. You're clever persons. But what is harm your studying process? Not because you are lazy, or not because your brain is not responsible to study. Of course not. You have 2 problems which I want to check and now to show in this slide part. Problem number 1, half of you, I'm very sorry, but don't know normally the English. You don't need to know it prominently, you know? I don't need here to have problem. My English also not so good. But it must to be enough for study. If you decided to study in English, guys, your English must to be enough. But it is only first part of the problem. Second part of the problem, it's bigger than the first one. You don't know the terms, because you don't know study the Latin language also. You know, in the medical practice, the general language of the medicine, it is the Latin. Between our 2 orbits, we call glabella. And midpoint of the glabella, we call nasum, just 2 minutes before I say you. Posteriorly protrusion, which we have, we call protuberantio occipitalis externa. And midpoint of it, we call ilium. The sutures I showed just now, lambdoid suture, sagittal suture, coronar suture. Midpoint of our head here, which is located in the border between, this is geometrical midpoint between our coronar suture and sagittal suture. We call bregma. Remember this term, bregma. This is geometrical midpoint of our head, bregma. The point, my friends, which is located between 3 bones, look here please, it is frontal bone, parietal bone, and temporal bone. We call pterion. Pterion. Remember please, that's here we have borders of 3 bones. Generally it is not 3, it is 4 bones. It is frontal, parietal, temporal, and sphenoid bone. Pterion. Protrusion which we have in the chin, we call the menton. Menton. And a lot of another terms is given. Yeah, spine, anterior spine, inferior spine. Why I start my lesson not exactly from the bones? Why I start from these landmarks? Because this is the terminology, guys. If you want to study normally the bones, you must know the language of the medicine, the Latin. Or in another case, we work like, you know, the strangers.